Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. Now, the South African Broadcasting Corporation, SABC, says it has noted with concern the incorrect and misleading article titled SABC Again Pleads Poverty, Cites Virus, published by the Sunday Times newspaper today. The article states that the corporation will tomorrow appear before Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technology to request additional funding. This is not true, says the SABC. The SABC says it has not requested any additional funding and has no meeting scheduled for tomorrow with the Portfolio Committee on this matter. In fact, the SABC will be presenting its 2020-2021 corporate planning to the Portfolio Committee on Wednesday, the 13th. The board chair, Bongumusa Makhathini, joins us now on the line. Chairperson, a very good morning to you and thanks for joining us. I know we didn't make a plan about the colors, but as it happens, our Mother's Day creative work also bears these colors, so it must be the color of the day.
Yeah, thank you, Desiree. Good morning to you and good morning to our viewers at home.
What do you want to clarify about that Sunday Times article?
Firstly, it is not correct that we are seeking for a bailout. We receive our 3.2 bailout from the government, and since then we've put systems in place to manage our cash flow and make sure that we do what is responsible and necessary to ensure that SABC becomes financially sustainable. And we have no scheduled meeting with the Portfolio Committee tomorrow. That's not true. But of course, it is important for South Africans to appreciate that SABC is also affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, which has affected, globally a lot of industries. And as the SABC, we are also affected by that. And that's why we've made a submission to the shareholder about what losses we're going to have as a result of COVID-19. So the numbers quoted by Sunday Times are entirely misleading and incorrect.
Did the Sunday Times reach out to the SABC or the board to get the correct information?
Strangely enough, we submitted a response to Sunday Times about the questions that they'd asked relating to salary increases, but not about the figures that they've now published. And that's why we issued a statement today very early to just ensure that we correct the incorrect information that Sunday Times have published.
Of course, cash flow and liquidity remain issues at the SABC. How is the corporation faring now since the previous tranche of assistance came through?
Certainly, the COVID-19 has affected quite a lot of industries, but as the SABC, we've done our best to bring stability in terms of the finances of the SABC. And we made a submission, for example, to the shareholder, just sharing with them what will be the impact of COVID-19 in the next 6 months or so. And this is as a result of us having to displace a lot of our normal programming to make way for government briefings, but also to make sure that we increase the levels of awareness around COVID-19. So that would have an impact of about 1.5 billion rands, but that's basically into this current financial year, which will be as a result of the COVID-19. But as the SABC, we have to do that because as a public broadcaster, we've got to play our role in ensuring that people are informed and accurate information is shared with our listeners and the public in general about this pandemic. But in terms of where we are as the SABC, we've done significantly well in actually honoring the commitments that we had made when we requested bailout. Bailout was meant for three things. Was to pay for our suppliers, content providers, was also to make sure that we have new and compelling content. The third one had to do with our technology infrastructure. And the bailout money has been channeled to fulfill those priorities and to ensure that we do what National Treasury and the department and the shareholder representative agreed with us as the SABC.
Your other commitment is to your workers in the form of your payroll, which you touched on a bit, saying you sent responses to the Sunday Times regarding salary increases. Just clarify that story for us, because so much has been said about it that it's not really clear what the truth is.
The truth about the salary increases, in 2018, April, a board approved a 3-year agreement with the unions. And that 3-year agreement spoke to an increase of 5% in 2018, 6% in 2019, and 6% in 2020. And that 3-year agreement was signed and approved by the board. And there is no effort on our side to reverse that. So that agreement still stands. I mean, our employees have done exceptionally well to help us turn around the SABC, and we have honored that agreement. And when you look at those numbers that we had agreed with, are far less than what used to be the increases at SABC in the last 10 years. I mean, the increases at SABC used to be between 8 and 11.5%. And the agreement that we signed is significantly lower than that. But sadly, that agreement, in terms of the numbers that we had given to our employees, are far less than what National Treasury had given as the guidelines in terms of the increases that were permitted. And as the SABC board, we have honored that agreement, and we will make sure that our employees get a fair chance and a fair opportunity, and they're treated fairly in terms of that agreement. But of course, when you look at where we are as a country and as a globe in terms of the pandemic and COVID-19, we have to look at other ways to keep afloat, because we will be affected, like I've quoted, a figure of 1.5 billion rand in the next 6 months. So we'll get back and engage with unions and our employees to say, how then do we respond to the current challenges that we face? Where and how we go about trimming costs and make sure that we keep afloat and we ensure that SABC remain financially viable and sustainable.
So you're negotiating with the unions regarding the way forward. You are not revising or renegotiating the standing agreement?
No, we're not reversing the standing agreement. No, we're not. But what we need to do, which we will do with the unions, is to engage on the new agreement, because the agreement that was cited in the newspapers is actually the agreement that has come to an end. It has expired. So it will make no sense for the SABC to go back and renegotiate an agreement that has actually expired. And if you look at, in February, when we approved our corporate plan, the current board approved those figures, the 6% for this year, and our employees have already received that increase. So it will make no sense for the SABC to revisit that. But of course, we have now taken into consideration the current challenges that we face and say, how then do we make sure that the new agreement take into consideration the challenges and the economic meltdown and the decline in revenue that we are all experiencing. All media houses, all industries are affected. But it's not only an SABC issue. It's a global challenge that we all need to work together to make sure that we remain financially viable.
You're correct. It is a global story about how different corporations and different businesses have to cope at this time. Are you able to unpack for us the SABC plan for mitigating the COVID-19 impact?
I wouldn't be at liberty now because we've had to submit some of these details to the shareholder, and we will be discussing that with the shareholder. But once we've also done that, we also need to engage with unions. You wouldn't want to engage with unions through the media. So we've got to have a sit down with the leadership of the unions and our employees in general to just look at the situation we face with. But of course, there are a number of plans that are in our corporate plan as well as in our turnaround in terms of us trimming the costs in other areas, but also finding other viable ways to increase our revenue generation as the SABC.
One of the things you mentioned in the statement was that at this time, advertising income is very restricted. How is this going to affect the SABC in terms of its profitability and ability to carry out its mandate?
The impact on the SABC, I've categorized it. There is losses in terms of revenue generation coming from advertising, and also there's costs associated with displacement of our normal programming. There's also costs that relates to us not being able to get what we had projected to get. And the impact to the SABC in the next 6 months is going to be 1.5 billion rand.
Quite a loss there. Of course, in every dark cloud, there's a silver lining. The news during the week that SABC News was the #1 watched platform in the country. What's your reaction to this?
I'm very proud of what the SABC has been able to achieve and what our employees have really done to bring SABC to become number one. And I just want to congratulate the news team and our employees in general for the efforts and the sacrifice that they make under trying circumstances. And for them to really continue believing to the national broadcaster, I want also to thank South Africans for supporting us by paying their TV licenses. And now we've delivered. I mean, SABC is number one when it comes to the news. And we've launched an education channel as a response to the current challenges faced by our learners and our kids that are not able to go to school. So SABC is really delivering as the public broadcaster and doing its best to make sure that we deliver to South Africans.
Of course, with the direction of the board, what is SABC News doing right?
When you look at our SABC News, we are credible. Our journalists are able to do their work without fear, without favor. And as a result of that, you can see the numbers and us being able to gain the audiences that we had lost before. But also, I mean, every South African know that when you go to SABC or you listen to SABC News, you know that our news are fair and are not biased and are done in a way that is adhered to the journalistic principles. So, I mean, the news team is doing an exceptional job. But the other thing that is amazing, I mean, we've made SABC relevant to ordinary South Africans. You know, we cover all aspects, and even ordinary South Africans also get an opportunity to tell their own stories. So we are fully able to fulfill our mandate as the SABC.
Well, let's thank you for talking to us this morning. The chairperson of the SABC board, Mr. Bongumusa Makhathini.